counters to Karthus, and Karthus is just unstoppable if you don't build right against her. So we'll see where they go with that.
Yeah, Ahri, yeah, of course, very popular right now because of the ability to dive and just so much damage. Alistar, Nocturne ban. Alistar seeing a lot of play in the jungle, and of course in that bot lane, just really strong and gives you such an aggressive advantage in that bot lane. And the Nocturne too as well gives you that aggressive advantage where if you're pushing the lanes too hard, you have to really, really be concerned about Nocturne ulting and coming in on you. So I definitely understand those bans.
Yeah, all just really common bans. They're just all around strong champions. So
yeah,
we'll see where they go from here. I think the first couple of picks are really going to be telling, but they'll probably start off with some standard kind of supports. See who's available. There is still Zyra open. She's just been unstoppable. Oh, this is
Diana's available.
I don't think we're gonna see a Diana though.
That would be fun. I would like it.
Yeah, but there's the Zyra pick, and Zyra is just really strong right now. Did you see the Zyra changes that they posted on the forums?
No, I did not.
So Riot already is like planning on nerfing her in like a large number of ways.
And yeah, I mean, her ultimate is ridiculous. Her plant damage is just like surprisingly ridiculous. Where you're like, oh, I can face 2 plants, and then half your life's gone by the time you get out of range of them.
Let's play a game real quick. Zyra's Q. Ridiculous or not ridiculous?
Ridiculous.
Zyra's E. Ridiculous.
Ridiculous.
Okay, Zyra's ultimate. Ridiculous.
No, not ridiculous. No, I'm scared. No, the most ridiculous. That ultimate is crazy.
Yeah, the big thing with Zyra is that she has a lot of burst damage from base HP, or from base damage, but then she also has a lot of kiting potential and being able to just roam, take a step back, throw off the snare. She doesn't need her ultimate to be up in order to kill you and in order to be effective in team fights, which is pretty nice. But then she still has short cooldowns, and her ult, when it is up, it's just like, dear God, that was magical. But yeah, so really strong pick there. We'll see how they deal with her. But then right off the bat for MYM, grabbing Graves and Nunu, very strong bottom lane. Corki and Lee Sin going on to the other side. So we'll see where they go with that.
Yeah, I really like Nunu and how he's being played right now. He's, of course, he allows you to be really aggressive early game by like invading. And we, of course, I mentioned it a lot, but we see that a lot in the Korean and the Asian scene. We saw clg.na playing Nunu mid with Caitlyn and able to invade with the jungler. But also just allows you to be really aggressive and gives you the flexibility of, either being able to get out pretty easy with the Blood Boil or being able to chase really hard and play really aggressive. And right now, Nunu is just a really, really strong support.
Yeah, no, he is a very strong champion all around. And I think one of the big things is Absolute Zero just provides the best counter initiation for a team, and it really protects your back line, particularly if you have short ADs like Graves who might otherwise be vulnerable. You just throw down that Nunu ultimate and there's just no getting past it. Like it's a brick wall basically. So we'll see where they go with that. They have a pretty short range team right now, so really tanky but very short range. So H2k, if they get some nice AoE, like a Vladimir pick in that top lane, they could maybe abuse that a little bit. They go with the Sona, so that AoE's initiation is definitely going to be very strong if they can counter out all of this melee team from MYM and try and pull them into a little clump. So that'll be huge. And then we'll see where they go with the top lane. There's also Rumble still available. Rumble and Vladimir, probably the most standard picks here, are very strong, unless they're a little bit concerned about the pressure that they might face from Udyr.
Yeah, Udyr, of course, like you said, close range champions, got to get in close. But I mean, they're still, fairly tanky. And with that Nunu and ultimate can be really scary when you're going to try to get in and do everything. Oh, Vlad, like you said, good call, dude. And yeah, you kind of know what you're talking about just a little bit. So yeah, Vlad's going to be able to just sit tight and farm and do a lot of damage when they try to initiate with those close range. And we haven't seen a lot of Ryze lately. And I think we briefly talked about this before. Yeah. Scar was saying that he doesn't push the lane really well, and there's such a strong strategy right now of pushing hard and then roaming around and going into jungle, going into top and bottom lane, and just trying to do some damage. And yeah, that would be a cool pick. Tryndamere, I would like to see that a lot.
Yeah, any sort of melee bruiser up in the top lane that has strong initiation does very well against Vladimir. So we'll see where they go with this. I think Irelia is a little bit more common of a pick. She's very dominant in that top lane. But if the guy knows Tryndamere, then the guy knows Tryndamere. So yeah, we'll see where they go with that. And like you were saying, Ryze, the pushing is a struggle, and Zyra could be a really difficult matchup for him. There we go. I like to see that. So the Ryze versus the Zyra. Zyra not only can push Ryze into the tower very easily. She has with great wave clearing capabilities. But Ryze, he needs to play up close to the line, not only to farm, but also if he wants to exchange any harass. And Zyra, her snare is so easy to hit, and it also goes through minions. So if Ryze ever tries to put any pressure on Zyra, she can just retreat back a little bit, take a couple of steps back, throw off the snare, and then do massive amounts of damage to him. So Zyra has a huge advantage in that lane. We'll see how they can push it, but MYM, they have a really strong tanky late game team.
Yeah.
So, you know, if they can split up a little bit in team fights, and that's kind of one thing that Irelia does for them. Irelia, she's short range, but her penetration into the back line, if she just really gets into that back line onto Zyra, she can maybe, you know, burst Zyra down, prevent some of that damage. But then also, it splits up H2k's focus, where they're not able to just AoE an entire area, because now Irelia's in one spot, Ryze and Graves are in another, Udyr's in another, and they kind of, you know, break up a little bit. But we'll see how they go with it. A lot of it, you know, could come down into those early advantages, and the laning phase and everything is clearly the key in almost any matchup.
Yeah, like you said, they're really tanky, and it seems like they have a really strong level one team as well for MYM. You have the Ryze with the bind, and so they can do some lockdown with that. But and then again, strong invade potential from Nunu combined with Udyr. So they're gonna. I wouldn't be surprised to see an invade out of them. Let's see, what do we have?
He's actually running movement speed. So 21, 0, and 9 on Ryze, very aggressive, but also running movement speed. So he has a little bit more mobility, and that's going to be key in the matchup against Zyra, because he needs to be avoiding those snares and whatnot. And if she's able to take him down, that could be really dangerous. And just being able to, you know, constantly position himself in fights will be pretty huge.
Yeah. You know what I really like about Zyra is like the Baron and the Dragon fight potential with like setting up the traps and the plants, and you can really just like kind of bait out. You know, you get the other team thinking confident or being confident and going in and trying to do some damage, and then they get exploded by four plants just come out of nowhere and start doing tons of damage. Combined with that, if they don't go in and try to make something happen, she can take down Baron so fast with those plants. So she really provides a lot of opportunity in those team fight situations where you're trying to force objectives. She's really strong at that. So and so you were talking about some of the changes. Do you know what else? You know what's in store for her?
I think they're looking to get rid of some of the damage on her. E in particular, her snare is a little bit too strong. The seedlings, if you're getting hit by 2 plants or any more than 1 plant, every plant further is 50% damage reduction.
Oh, okay.
So it currently is 75% damage reduction, but that still is incredibly high. Like if you're getting hit by 2 plants, you're screwed. Like it's just a lot of damage.
It is.
And
is that to champions only, or is that also to?
Yeah, it's
like
to I don't know.
creeps,
I'm guessing it's to creeps, but I don't know that the creeps really.
Well, it's mostly Baron and Dragon.
Yeah. Yeah, that could be a big thing on Baron. They haven't really announced fully yet, like what the plans are, but they talked about it kind of. Lee Sin running some really interesting runes. I feel like he has too many stats, and I'm just like looking at it, was like, wow. But he's got movement speed, attack damage, health per level, and cooldown reduction. So that's going to be kind of an interesting thing there. Udyr also running movement speed. So there's a lot of movement speed in this game, a lot of mobility from both teams, but really interesting runes from Lee Sin. I really like what I'm seeing. That cooldown reduction could be huge, but still getting a lot of burst damage and then having a little bit more mobility.
Yeah, I don't really, you don't see that a lot, especially the health per level on Lee Sin. That is kind of an unusual rune. I mean, usually you see mostly armor pen and mostly attack damage, and we weren't seeing those out of Lee Sin. So I'm curious if just looking for a little bit stronger, you know, a little bit more tankiness because of how tanky maybe the other team is. Trying to explore options and be able to dive into the back line and do some damage to 2 Graves and 2 Ryze. And I wonder if that's maybe a way of getting around that.
Yeah, I mean, the armor, it could, you know, he could kind of get low early, but having those runes, they're very strong late game. And so having the movement speed and cooldown reduction in particular, but then couple that with HP, you know, per level, that could be very strong. But he also, the movement speed and attack damage will help him clear early and help him meet up against Udyr's aggression. You know, so we'll see how that kind of works out. I do, you know, generally like Lee Sin. He's a very strong jungler. Like, he goes back and forth, where he's like the best jungler ever, and then people just never play him. But he's just a strong all-around jungler. I think with the team that they have, they maybe could have gone with a pick like Maokai, someone that can have a little bit of an easier job of initiating onto Graves, and then also combos very well with Zyra, because you want to get off off that aggression in that mid lane since Zyra's looking to pressure Ryze. But Lee Sin, he can pass over the blue very easily. He doesn't have to worry about holding on to that. So, you know, just an all-around strong pick. So we'll see how that works out. But Irelia versus Vladimir, again, a very common lane, and Irelia does have an advantage in that lane. So we'll see what they can do to try and get Vladimir rolling, because otherwise Irelia, you know, can bully him around kind of early and then just continue to put on the pressure as she gets further and further into her item build.
Yeah, it's interesting that Irelia kind of fell out for a while,
Yeah.
and then now she's back in like full force and getting like
she's incredibly strong.
Like, she's so strong. So I'm curious, like what happened, and you know, what was the situation where they stopped playing her? I know she got some nerfs, and so maybe people tend to like over analyze the nerfs and maybe you know, think that, you know, that she's unplayable and, you know, she's not going to be, you know, quite as good as she was before. But even with the sustainability nerfs, like she still is ridiculous. And I think a lot of that is rooted in she's just so tanky and she does so much damage, and her toolkit is just so strong.
Well, and with the sustainability nerf, they gave her a little bit of a buff, and then she became more of a killer in the top lane. She had a little bit more burst damage, which has really worked out well for her. I think the big thing is people just got really high on champions like Jax for a little bit, and there were a number of really strong champions in the top lane, and they kind of forgot about Irelia as a result. And as those champions were phased out from various nerfs over time, she's pulled back in, and with the recent set of nerfs we've seen to champions in the top lane, I think Irelia could be really the key pick in the top lane for quite some time. So we'll see, you know, how much she's continuing to be played. But I think that Irelia is going to be played almost every single game from now on until, you know, we see some further changes.
Yeah, she's continuing to be really strong, and Wicked always continued to use her. So I think that was a testament of how,
I don't know. I remember him whining a lot when they nerfed her. He was just, you know, complaining about how terrible she is and how she's impossible to play.
I think it's just because there's a slight change in style where it's not kind of, there's less sit back and farm, and now it's more of a you have to be really aggressive and push your lead whenever you can get it. So a little bit different style, but yeah, he was whining a lot, but he can still continue to play her, and I think that has a lot to do with the fact that she's, you know, her toolkit is still like really strong, and it, you know, slight changes aren't going to change her in a way that she's not going to be used anymore. So in the bot lane, we're seeing Corki and Sona. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about, you know, what we can expect out of that bot lane.
Well, it's a strong lane for both sides, and Corki and Sona, they have a lot of burst damage, and a lot of it's ability-based, which means that Nunu won't necessarily completely shut them down. Like, Nunu as a support, he's one of the best duelists. You have the Blood Boil constantly on your AD carry, and then with the Snowball, you can shut down a lot of that AD damage. However, if Nunu and Sona, if they decide to initiate on someone, they're going to almost insta-kill them. Like, they're just going to burst them down so quickly that the Snowball won't have any impact on the matter. That being said, Nunu and Graves is a very strong lane, and Graves, he can push into the tower a little bit faster than Corki can, so they could push up. They could maybe get some early advantages there and then set up for an Udyr gank. So we'll have to see. It's you know, in the quick burst, the harass, Nunu or Corki and Sona have an advantage.
This is where Ryze is going to come in and just get the bind off, and she's going to get stuck, and just, this is the really strong level 1 invade that I was talking about, and because of Ryze, can go in there and lock him down. So that's a really early kill for Ryze and give him a little bit of advantage in the mid lane. He's going to go back and he's just going to buy, and that's really the smart thing to do. Oh, okay, I was completely wrong, but the smart thing to do is just try to get as much lead in the very beginning of the game as you can, and that's a really big help, especially against such a difficult you know, challenge in the mid lane with Zyra against Ryze with some of the things you were talking about. So that little bit of lead is going to help balance it out a little bit more, and it's going to give Ryze just that little edge to make it a little bit more even in the mid lane.
Yeah, so we'll see how that's going to affect it. Corki's still eyeing those mini golems, and he is actually going to start them as Sona comes up. But MYM, they're perfectly fine with sitting here and waiting. They have the ward over here by Lee Sin. There's another ward by the Dragon, so they're going to actually catch Lee Sin here. When he goes for this red, he can be in a really dangerous situation, and Lee Sin will get pretty low early, particularly with outrunning that armor, and MYM could easily turn this around. Oh, get out of there, Coggle. You have to run, and he's not going to get out. There's the second kill. MYM off to a huge early start.
Oh, and they're just feeding it to their carry. So that's probably the worst situation for you, you know, when you're trying to, you know, go even against the lane and then they get those early kills. And Graves is someone that you don't want to give an advantage to because his ability to trade so well. Yeah. So he's going to have a little bit of tankiness, and he's going to be able to dive in and just force these trades where he's going to be coming out way on top with that buckshot. So really bad position for bot lane to be in at this point.
Yeah, they have a slight advantage with the regen from Sona, but it is going to be very difficult to harass down Graves. He can just constantly push them into the tower if he decides to, try and deny some of that gold from Corki, and we'll see how that lane continues to factor in. But yeah, great early advantages all around for MYM, which is really hard to start off again in that such a disadvantage. You know, top lane. Hamat, you know, starting off, I guess I just won't say that name ever, but starting off in a nice position here against Irelia. In the first like level or two, Vladimir does have an advantage, but once Irelia gets some quick bursts, it's a serious issue, particularly once she gets her W, gets that true damage onto her auto attacks. That could be really dangerous.
Yeah, and so I mean, once Irelia starts getting strong, it's yeah, like you said, it's really difficult for Vlad to just kind of sit there and farm, which is what he wants to do, because Irelia can just dive in. Ooh, meanwhile, in the bottom lane, just getting really pushed up. And like you said, this is what Graves does, is he can push the lane really hard. And when you have an advantage like that, just push it all you can. Oh, meanwhile, Udyr coming in and getting that bear stance and is going to try to lock down Vlad, and Vlad is going to go down here pretty quick. So.
Oh, Udyr not even getting an assist. Irelia just a little greedy there. So missing out on some of that gold, but it doesn't matter. I mean, they're at such a huge lead right now. You know, Vladimir's going to be in a really dangerous situation. And the movement speed on Udyr, I think a lot of people have forgotten for a time how strong of a jungler Udyr is, because he's a controlling jungler, you know, like Shyvana and like Mundo, like we've been seeing, but he has much more aggressive ganks, and his early damage is really high with the Phoenix, with the red buff, some quick burst damage from Zyra, and that's the kind of pressure she can put onto Ryze. But Udyr can be very aggressive, and so being ahead early allows Udyr to get off those ganks like he likes to, and allows him to put on pressure around the map.
Yeah, he's really straightforward, and I think that's kind of why he excels so much. Meanwhile, on the bottom lane, Nunu is just going to try to close in, and Corki's going to take some significant damage from that Blood Boil, but he's trying to poke back, and Graves is going to have to kind of hang back a little bit with that low life. But like you're saying, Udyr, he can clear really fast, and with that Phoenix stance, he does so much early damage, and then the thing is, when you get into the late game, that damage turns into just pure tankiness. And with that turtle stance and the ability to run around the map, really strong ganks and really strong control, like you said. It's really hard to single him out. And he kind of falls into this area where he's doing damage, so you can't ignore him, but he's too tanky to actually focus. So it's that kind of that middle area that makes him really difficult to face.
Yeah, so we'll see how that factors in. Some great bursts from Zyra, though, the Ignite as well. Almost going down, flashing in for one more attack, could take him down, but just can't quite get the range. And probably could have been comfortable with just picking up the farming advantage there, pushing Ryze out of lane. But even so, it is a very difficult matchup for Ryze. So that is one thing that they have going for them. The fact that Zyra can win the mid lane, even though they're down, even though Ryze has some nice advantages. Getting that early catalyst is definitely going to be huge for him, though, because it gives you a little bit more lane sustain. It gives you that tankiness where you have a little bit more survivability. But we'll see how top lane can continue to be pressured by Irelia, and bottom lane as well. So Corki and Sona, they need to get some levels. Level 6 in particular, they should have enough damage where they can duel with Graves, but right now they just don't have enough upfront burst. And you know, Nunu and Graves with that early advantage should be able to push them around a little bit. Corki with a Doran's and a Vamp Scepter, whereas Graves already has his Berserker Greaves, so he can exchange harass a little bit more easily, and then still with the attack speed and the Blood Boil, it's just going to be, you know, really devastating in early bruiser fights.
Yeah, that extra mobility is just going to make him such a scary force to deal with. So it's going to be a little bit difficult for Corki at this point. I did notice that Ryze got some resist, so I think Ryze is acknowledging that, you know, the trades just aren't going his way. And you saw how much damage those plants did in such like a short amount of time. Like all of a sudden those plants came up and he almost died. So they're really surprising in the way that they pop out of nowhere, but they're also surprising in how much damage they can do in such a short amount of time. But Udyr's going to come in here, and there's the flash and the bear stance, and just taking him out real quick.
Yeah,
and that's
flashing in to make sure that he didn't hit that pole and just insta-killing Vladimir, basically.
Yeah, and that's really strong ganks from Udyr, and you know, that's if you aren't careful, and of course there's no ward there for Vladimir at this point, so he's just going to keep coming in and doing some damage until, you know, Vladimir can learn and actually. Oh, and Sona almost going down, and Corki just chunking him down too, seeing if he can do some damage to Graves, but he's going to need to be careful because Graves has such high burst. Meanwhile, Lee Sin is going to come in with Zyra, and Nunu's going to try to run away.
Oh, but the flash and Lee Sin trying to get the Q off. Makeler's just barely able to get out of there. Ryze and Nunu are here as well to try and counter that out some, but some quick burst damage. They're almost able to take down Graves. You know, once he hits 6, they will have to watch out, though, because he could just have a quick dash in, just explode Sona with his ultimate and auto attack. So we'll see what they can kind of do there. But nice mobility from H2k trying to get some pressure, and that's with their runes and masteries, with that movement speed. That's kind of what you expect to see from them, to try and, you know, roam around the map, pick up some early kills, despite the fact that they're down, 2.5k is pretty significant if they can pressure the map some. A couple of kills, they could quickly come back from that. So we'll see where they go from there. Lee Sin, he is getting Ninja Tabby, so he has some early survivability. Not going to speed up his jungle that much, so we'll see, where he goes with from there. Yeah,
the Ninja Tabby with those health, runes, so he's going to be getting pretty tanky as the game goes on. But bottom lane, I'm really surprised because they're playing really aggressive, but Corki is still, keeping up on farm and is able to get in there and still do some damage, still poke like that, and stay pretty even on farm. So even though they're pretty far behind, and they're not far behind, but even though they're getting pushed down really, really hard from Graves and Nunu, they're still, they're still in this game. So congrats to them.
Oh, and Lee Sin trying to get in there. Udyr just barely able to hold on to that blue. So he's had great ward coverage all around their jungle, has the oracles, was able to force that the second it spawned. So doing a nice job there. Corki almost killing Graves here. He does have to watch out. He does still, no, he doesn't have his ultimate, but Corki has enough damage and is, a little bit an advantage here. But we'll see, how MYM can try and push their advantage with the map control. It does shut down some of what H2k is trying to do. But the thing to consider is also, while H2k, they're putting themselves behind by not getting any wards, they're also, not as far down as necessarily they, look like they are. They're 3k down, but it's really only like 2k down, considering the fact that MYM has spent a lot more into wards and oracles. Yeah, and that's gonna be actually, that's gonna help them a lot, those oracles. And again, top lane, Vlad put down a ward, but Udyr's gonna be able to go up there, clear it, and just that perceived aggression. Even if he's not there, the lack of wards is gonna make top lane a really scary place for Vladimir. Meanwhile, Udyr's gonna try to sneak in here and do some damage. Yeah, and he's going to chase them down. The snowball from Nunu almost hitting there. Corki needs to hit the Valkyrie, but I'm not sure. Yes, just barely having enough mana, so actually dropping down to 0 mana. He was waiting for it to come up, just barely able to get that. They could maybe force the dragon now because Graves is coming back. They know that bot lane is getting out of there. Ryze walking up to Zyra. If it's in short range contact, then Ryze can get some nice damage against Zyra, and having a little bit of survivability is definitely huge. But we'll see if they back off and decide to go for that Baron or Dragon, not actually going for it. So we'll take a step off. Yeah, and in top lane, this is the issue when Irelia gets a pretty good lead on you. 2 kills to none, a little bit ahead in farm as well. So, and that with that level advantage too, Irelia can really just kind of push around Vlad, try to get him out of lane. And like you said, like Vladimir, he has that early game advantage, but because of those ganks from Udyr were so successful, that advantage quickly faded away. Now Irelia's in a place where she's going to be really successful in that top lane. Yeah, and Vlad probably going to go for, actually going for a Haunting Guise. I was thinking he might go for the double gold pretend, which is something you see a lot of times on Vlad when you're a little bit behind or in an aggressive lane. You just want to continue to farm, but going for that burst damage. So, we'll see if that allows him to have enough damage. But the flash in from Ryze and Zaza going down almost immediately just exploded. And MYM, they have some really nice advantages in this game. Udyr are still kind of camping top a little bit. We'll see whether or not Vlad can turn this around. But I think going for that damage, it will be very tough against Irelia still, and she can still chase him down for those kills. Yeah, MYM just really aggressive in that bot lane, and that's the power of Graves with that burst. And, Ryze, too, just very bursty champion, and that can go in and just explode people. And Graves is trying to do some damage on the tower, but Corki's just doing a good job of poking him down and, keeping it so he's not getting everything that he wants. He still has to play safe, and he still has to get back. And Zyra down, maybe was going to try to make a play, but good on Graves, spotted that and got out pretty quick. Yeah, and with that phage on Irelia, Kuban, he can just chase down Vlad here, and anytime he procs, he can chase him down with that true damage, just constantly force him back out of lane, and all of a sudden you see, with that Haunting Guise, yeah, he has a little bit more damage, but he just can't get it onto Irelia. He has no hope of sitting in this lane, so he's not getting any sort of gold income now, and they can just completely shut down Vladimir. So we'll see what he tries to do to farm up. Really needs to kind of roam a little bit, leave lane a lot, wait for the lane to push back, go, try and farm mid some, try and farm your own jungle, and then wait for the lane to come back to you. Yeah, and meanwhile, the Nunu ultimate, they don't see him, and a huge amount of damage to Sona. And Sona tries to get safe. Meanwhile, Corki's just getting chunked down because now his support is gone, and he's getting snowballed. And is he going to make it out of there? It's going to be really close, but Graves just keeps falling up. He's taking some of that turret damage. And he went down, so that's unfortunate. Yeah, really nice play. I thought Sona had just barely cleared the ultimate, and I honestly, I didn't expect the level 1 ultimate to do that much, but Nunu's ultimate, it really does a lot of damage. Yeah. If you charge it all the way, which is about where he got, then it's 2.5 times its base damage. So actually looking at that damage, you can see it's 625 times 2.5. So, you know, it's...
Is that how much it is?
Or I'm sorry, it doesn't multiply that much.
Okay, I was like...
That's with the... I don't remember actually how it scales. But it's a lot
It does
of damage.
1 million damage.
I guess it's just 625. There was something about... Oh, you know what? It's 2.5 times the AP ratio.
Oh, okay.
625 is the base, is the full base.
Yeah.
But it's the AP ratio times 2.5 when you scale it. Vladimir, though, getting very low. Udyr coming in. Irelia getting kind of low herself, but Vladimir going down regardless. Won't really matter. Lee Sin with the kick into Graves, and they're chasing after Nunu. He doesn't have a clear escape path here. The movement speed, the snowball trying to get him out. He's actually burning the distance, so Lee Sin not quite able to catch him up. Will get into Graves, though. Gets the slow as well. Nunu very close to the kick, but can't quite finish it off, and so they have to back off. MYM in a huge advantage, though. Graves sitting there, you know, just shooting him in the back. He's able to force him out there a little bit.
Yeah, really good teamwork from Graves. He knew he needed to get in between Lee Sin and Nunu so that he can block that Q from Lee Sin. So really good, and then just with, you know, a little bit of tankiness from Graves, and was able to just kind of shove him out of there. But that kick was so close to make it happen. But this is, you know, MYM's doing a really good job. They have an advantage, and when you have an advantage, you can ward really deep and control those objectives. And that's what Udyr is doing, taking that blue, clearing these wards, and really just helping top lane to be, you know, even more successful.
Yeah, if you compare Graves and Corki, Corki's doing a nice job of farming, but Graves, starting off with that early build, probably building into a Bloodthirster. And so having the Bloodthirster, it's a really, you know, cheap AD item. You get it out really early in the game, and so it's not as strong as like an Infinity Edge, but it gives them a great opportunity where they can just completely shut down Corki.
Yeah.
The regen will be nice against Sona, but they've actually swapped lanes, so looking for this aggressive push. They took the bottom lane already. They're pushing down the top lane. Vladimir doesn't really have a lot that he can do, and Nunu might chase him down once this tower is gone. The pool just barely able to clear that distance there, and they do have to back off, but they're still in pursuit while the rest of the team is clearing in on them. Lee Sin and Zyra. Nunu doesn't have a good escape path, neither does Graves. Libic almost going down there. The Q from Lee Sin picks him up, but Udyr here trying to take down Zyra does go down himself, and this is actually a nice turnaround from H2k, able to pick up 2 kills there. Oh, Irelia trying to come in. The flash from Zyra, but Irelia is in hot pursuit, dodging the snare there, trying to pick up those kills. Will almost go down, but Graves able to pick it up, and another kill. Irelia going down. Graves might go down himself, and all of a sudden, H2k's in a good position, but the Rise with the turnaround, bursting down Corki. One more Q will take down Lee Sin, gets the double kill, and they are able to pick up the advantage once again.
Oh, man, that was like a kid in the candy shop for Rise. Close range. Oh, and he's just chunking down Corki. And then Sona's coming up and ulting. Is Rise going to go down? Oh, man. So MYM is being a little aggressive.
Everyone's running into the fight 1v1, basically.
Yeah. But I mean, Rise, I mean, Lee Sin, you know, they're in that bush. They're all clumped together. That's Rise's heyday, was able to get in and just do a ton of damage and save Graves. So Graves got out. But, you know, there's an early point there where Graves and Nunu were kind of going different ways. I don't think there was, like, the best of communication. Nunu was still going, you know, south, and Graves wanted to try to go back and do some, you know, try to go to that bush.
Nunu was like, we're heading out of here, right?
Yeah.
Or Graves was like, we're heading out of here, right? Nunu was like, no, we got to fight.
Yeah, I only have
for
one
glory.
job. Snowballs. Snowballs, yeah. So they, it was a little bit of miscommunication, but I mean, luckily, I know that was just a crazy fight because everyone kind of just kept getting in there late, a little late, and then just doing some kills. But it actually wasn't too bad for H2k. Meanwhile, Lee Sin getting caught out by Udyr, getting snowballed. Is he going to make it out of there? Zyra came in and helped out, but Graves is still getting chunked down by Graves. Oh, so Lee Sin goes down.
Yeah, and they're able to make the plays. They need to pressure them right now when they have the nice gold advantage. Irelia going with the Brutalizer, which is a very early game item. Usually you'll see, you know, the transition into the Trinity Force. You know, the movement speed in particular would definitely help Irelia, but going with the Brutalizer gives her a little bit more burst, which means that they're planning on abusing H2k right now. They know they have a huge gold lead. They aren't looking to finish those late game items. They're getting the early game items to just really put on the pressure. So that it kind of does open up an opportunity for H2k to come back, but we'll see if they can, because it's just so much pressure for MYM, and Rise not allowing Vladimir to farm. Gets off the snare through the pool, chasing him down, has enough damage. If he can get one last snare, he does have the cooldown reduction, and Vladimir will almost surely go down. There it is, one last Q, able to pick up the kill and then back off.
Yeah, Vladimir getting a little too aggressive, or like a little too overconfident there. Didn't have the wards in the right places, and so Rise was able to just come up and get a pretty easy kill. But, you know, Graves is so massive right now, and Graves is going to be a really hard, you know, really bad situation for H2k, and they don't really have a strong way of initiating. And there you go. Sona goes down really quick because of how strong Graves is, and with that mobility, he's able to get in, and thanks to Nunu for slowing him down. So, Graves is really strong, and the thing is for H2k, they don't have a real good way of taking out Graves when he's this beefy. It's going to be hard for them to get to the back line with the help of Nunu, with that ultimate, with that snowball. So Graves is going to kind of be able to do whatever Graves wants at this point, and that's damage.
Yeah,
Graves
and if you look at how much gold they have left, Corki has about 1,000 gold, which means he's going to be able to finish off that Sheen. But Graves, he actually saved up enough. He's just going to go straight for the Infinity Edge. So gets the early advantage with the BF sword, but he's going to be able to continue to pressure it. Lee Sin coming into Irelia here, but going down very quickly. The follow-up, they have enough damage.
Ooh.
The stun from Zyra actually chasing him down. Doesn't quite have enough for Irelia, so we'll have to back off. But Nunu and Graves, they are coming in behind. Want to pick off Zyra in the back here. Graves is going to tank it a little bit, so he needs to wait for his team, but they will have the kill. Follow up the snare, and Graves is going to be okay to get out of there. Oh, but Corki and Zyra being able to pick up Udyr. He does go down. They do get the mid-turret, though.
Man, Graves is just really strong, continues to get even more fed. 8-0-2. Meanwhile, the Sono goes down on Rise, but Rise is going to try to do some damage before he gets out of there. Oh.
Yeah, and Graves could maybe turn this around, but he's very low. Does have to watch out for that there. So that's definitely nice to pick up any sort of assist or anything to help Vladimir into this game. But 0-5-3, not a lot of gold. He was forced to go late Doran Shields, and so those are items you want to get a little bit later. But Irelia with the turnaround coming down the lane, gets off the snare against Vladimir. He's trying to get the flash off, but now they can turn onto Corki, and that red buff from Graves, it's actually worn off, so they're not quite able to finish them off. But one more Blade Surge, and Irelia can maybe chain this, get it onto Vladimir, get it onto Sona. It will pick up those kills. Lee Sin coming in as well.
Oh,
he's doomed.
man.
The kickback from Graves will go down to Zyra. Zyra over the wall can maybe pick this up, gets the double kill, and Lee Sin, this has actually worked out pretty well for them, but won't be able to take down Irelia here.
I'm pleasantly surprised by Lee Sin. I actually thought he was going to get blown up pretty quick there, but just was able to get a good kick and get in a good position to take him out and put Zyra in a place where she could do a lot of damage. So good on Lee Sin for that. But yeah, H2k slowly creeping back. I mean, they're still pretty far behind, but if they play safe, they farm well, and they can get Vlad a little bit more gold than where he's at right now, they're gonna be they could still be in this.
And part of the issue is that Vlad doesn't have a scaling build. So like I was saying a second ago, the Doran shield, they're late, so they help him farm in lane, but he shouldn't be expecting to be laning against anyone really at this point in time. So it's really just slowing down his build even further. We'll see what kind of pressure he can do. He's still going to have a lot of AoE damage even without getting deep into his items, just because Vladimir's ridiculous. But we'll see how he can pressure it, because MYM is just so far ahead right now, so they need to hold off. They can stall a little bit with Zyra, so short-range team versus pusher, Zyra can just clear those waves, try and pick people off. So that is one advantage for H2k. They can try and do that, but part of the issue is that Irelia is so ridiculously strong. She can just split push top, and no one can go lane against her. So she's going to continue to build on that advantage while H2k can't farm.
Yeah, Nunu might get caught out here. He's a little bit out of position. Owen Rise is just waiting to maybe do some damage. Here comes Udyr trying to get in. Owen Sona is getting blasted down by Rise pretty quick. And this turned around pretty quickly for MYM. They're going to pursue from Rise, coming out, trying to do some damage. He's going to catch Vlad, and Vlad just gets chunked out so quick, so he's so far behind. And the Zyra comes in and does some significant damage, and MYM's going to be forced to get back. So not the greatest of fights, but yeah, good for H2k, and that surprise Rise. Rise? That sounds kind of cool. Was there to chunk down Sona really quickly.
New York.
Yeah, unique New York.
And Irelia actually going to chase down Corki, catches him off on the side here. We'll burst him down really quickly. And the big issue with that fight, MYM, they were extremely aggressive. They know how far ahead they are. They wanted to press their advantages. Rise, in particular, he was sitting up close to the front line, and Rise is short range. And short range versus AoE teams and versus disables like Zyra Zyra's able to clean up very easily. You saw how ridiculous she was. Just getting all of that AoE onto MYM was able to burst them down, and that's going to be really dangerous for MYM. If H2k can force them into those dangerous situations and just play defensively. That defensive play from Zyra is just so strong. That's her biggest strength. So we'll see. It does open up some opportunities for them to continue to stall, continue to push, and maybe not go down quite so easily. It's 8k gold advantage for MYM right now. It was 12k not that long ago. So we'll see how they continue to pressure it. It is starting to get into that Baron range, though. And with Graves looking so strong and Irelia and everyone, they could maybe pressure it.
Yeah, I think H2k did pretty well in those last two fights, and I think part of that has to do with the fact that they actually have managed to kill Graves, but they're going to steal that red and try to get out, but let's see if Lee Sin can maybe close the scab and make something happen. Miss the skill shot from Zyra, and they're just going to poke and get back. So playing a little cautious. They know that they can't be going toe-to-toe with them at this point right now because of that significant lead. But those last 2 fights, they were able to kill Graves. You know, and Graves is massive right now, and that is, you know, helping them to be, you know, helping them catch up and, you know, hopefully keep them in this game.
Yeah, and Rise actually dueling with Sona a little bit. The stun, and Sona is going to drop immediately. Irelia is pushing up top, but she's actually making her way down so that they can force this fight. And part of the issue with Graves is, again, he's a short-range AD carry. Zyra can penetrate you know, her abilities to the back line, so can get off some nice damage there. They will take down this Dragon pretty easily, and we'll see if Irelia can force this. Coming in behind does have the team split, so they do kind of retreat, and hopefully she can get out of there. The snare from Zyra, so H2k will be able to get back into their base.
Yeah, H2k pretty good. I mean, another Dragon, another objective, another you know, small lead growth for MYM, and they're just going to push this mid lane, and they can do that because they're so far ahead. And especially if Graves can just stay alive, he can just poke him down like that and do some real damage with that buckshot. So as long as they play safe, meanwhile Zyra is doing some real damage here because of how strong those plants are, man. It's just too strong.
No, it's insane. That's a big issue that Graves is going to have to deal with right now. The fact that he wants to get up close and deal the damage for them, and you know their short-range team is just going to struggle against Zyra. We'll see if he can get a Guardian Angel, but the chase from Irelia gets the double Blade Surge. Vladimir with the flash is able to get out of there, so they will retreat. Nunu going with the mobility boots, actually, so wants to be able to force the fight and make sure that he's in that front line, so be able to chase people down. That'll be kind of interesting. You know, we'll see how they go. They have a double Aegis, so you know that's very strong, at least for those 2 members. But the Aegis in general, a really nice team-efficient item. And H2k, there aren't any good wards here for MYM. They saw them walking up past the blue, but they're just going to force this Baron really quickly.
I believe it can happen. So they're going to try to sneak it. This is really, I mean, one of the only ways they're going to be able to get back in the game if it's an even playing
Zyra
field.
has so much damage.
Oh my gosh, it's going down really fast. Can MYM stop this? I don't know if they can, especially, oh, that Sona ult going on.
They're able to take it in the last second, but some quick kills, and MYM is in complete control. They weren't able to take it fast enough. Vladimir does go down. The chase from Udyr, he's able to get the kill onto Zyra as well, and only one left is Corki. So, unfortunately, losing 4 members just for the Baron wasn't quite enough. The flash from Reflex Men trying to get out of there, but Limit is still chasing. Can't quite get that snowball off. Graves and Irelia, they really want this. The flash in from Graves, the quick burst damage, and Corki does go down, so there's the ace. But the big thing with that fight, they kind of pulled off on the Baron at the last second. Like, they were killing it really quickly. I think what happened was Zyra's plants died, and so they weren't quite able to finish it off. And some tanking from Graves, able to back them out of there. But I don't know, I thought they had the Baron. I thought they were going to be able to get out of there. It was getting very low, and then they weren't able to finish it fast enough. So it stalled a little bit. It allowed MYM to, you know, group up there and burst them down. And then Sona again, you know, just exploding. Lee Sin as well. Lee Sin, you know, not tanky enough at this point, so they're just able to instantly kill him.
Yeah.
And then it was a 5v3 basically.
Sona's definitely a one of those supports that really helps in the team fights with those auras. And I mean, she got her ultimate off, but it shouldn't be a situation where you just get your ulti off and that's it. Meanwhile, Lee Sin trying to do some damage on Nunu. Nunu goes down pretty quick, and Graves is just going to try to kite in here, and Rise is coming in, and Graves is just so beast with that mobility and that damage, and Corki's going to chase after him, and he's just going to try to grind him down really quick, and he does. You know, Rise is going to be in trouble unless he can burn down Corki here, which he does, and Sona hanging out, but Rise stealing those golems and just going to get out of here. So a lot of exchanging here where, you know, people kind of just fall in at the last second, go in and scoop up some kills. And Graves is just playing really aggressive because he has so much damage, and you know, it's working out for him. But then he's getting caught out and putting him into not the best situation. So he was at one point 8-0, I believe, and now he's 9-3. So Irelia is going to catch out Sona. Is Sona going to be able to get away? Meanwhile, Vlad's taking a lot of damage too, and Irelia's going to back out. So the safety of the turret there. But yeah, Graves was 8-0, is now 9-3. So he's playing really aggressive, and it's costing him a little bit. So and that's mostly because him and Nunu are kind of roaming around a lot and seeing what they can do. They have the help of Rise too, but yeah, Graves is still really strong, but his lead is shrinking as he continues to play so aggressive.
And Irelia with the Blade Surge onto the minion gets the slow off on Lee Sin. The kickback from Nunu, so Lee Sin He is able to get out of there. The big thing for MYM's team is they have great single target damage, so they need to be able to force some fights. But actually, Zyra coming up behind Irelia gets off the snare underneath the turret, and actually the Sona ultimate into the Zyra ultimate is able to burst down Irelia pretty quickly. She does back off in the bush, but will go down. Nunu, the only one here left. If Zyra can hit that long-range snare, but he has the movement speed, he's able to back out of there. And you know, just really nice play from H2k, able to, you know, pull themselves kind of back in this game. We'll see what they can continue to do. The big thing, H2k, they can't force fights, but neither can MYM really. So MYM, they have the movement speed. They have, you know, they want to pick people off, but they don't have long-range initiation. They kind of need to just run at H2k in order to fight. H2k, on the other hand, they have a very defensive team. They want to just kite back and allow MYM to run at them, and that's how they're going to win the fights. But Corki walking into Rise, gets snared. That's not the, you know, good way to do it. Trying to bait them in, has the Valkyrie, can't quite get the follow-up from Zyra. Graves, in the meantime, pushing down top. You know, probably a nice decision for them, because if they can get split pushes from Irelia and Graves, they're stronger than almost anyone in the game right now. They can win those 1v1 matchups and get that push going. So we'll see if this can pull H2k out of position, because the big thing is MYM, they can't continue to be forcing these fights against Zyra and just slamming their head against the wall.
Yeah, it's really good. H2k is doing a good job of clumping up and staying together as a team. Meanwhile, I think MYM is, because they have such an advantage, they feel like they can go out and, you know, roam individually. And we're seeing them getting caught out in certain situations, which is why we're seeing, you know, somewhat of a shrink in the gap. Actually, it's up to 14k now, so it's actually growing. It's not a shrink at all. But yeah, like you said, H2k has a really defensive team with Zyra, and, you know, with that Sona ult, and they can just kind of sit back and just play really safe and take this to the ultra late game. And if they get to that point, they can definitely, you know, have a real chance at still taking this game.
Well, the big thing is that Vladimir, he's still like
so far behind.
So far behind. I mean, he hardly even has what you would consider an item build. But we'll see. He's starting to get a little bit tankier. And again, he does do a lot of damage. Irelia forcing the fight, though. They just both explode, and Irelia can chase down. With that U-moose, Vladimir has to back off. Zyra trying to get some damage here, but the turret is very low. And now Graves is coming in late, which is perfect for MYM, because they don't want him to go down in the initial burst. He will be fine. The flash in from Irelia, try and force this off. And MYM will be able to take this inhibitor. The snowball, Vladimir's able to pull, so they will back off. But now with the inhibitor, they have a solid, tangible lead. They can continue to pressure this. They're actually going to tank this turret for a little bit and try and, you know, pressure this turret, but don't want to really force that. So Zyra, you know, is still a concern. They will have to back off, but nice job from MYM. And they have so much damage, they can just really quickly pick up their skills.
Oh, meanwhile, Nunu going off, and Irelia is diving in on Zyra. Zyra goes down, and that is the surrender. 1-0 for MYM, looking really strong in that game. And I think a lot of that had to do with, you know, they didn't have the strongest initiation, but they kept catching people out with like that Rise, you know, with the Rise bind. And, you know, so they did a pretty good job. And MYM strong. H2k was playing for that late game, but just kept getting caught out. And like you said, Vladimir didn't really have the item build. Sona 1-9, Vlad 1-7. And when you're giving away that many kills and you're not getting, you know, the gold that you need to be successful, you're gonna fall pretty far behind.
Yeah, no, really nice early advantages for MYM, and they had a nice single target burst team.
Yeah.
Irelia in the top lane, absolutely unstoppable, and that's always a really nice matchup for Irelia. Irelia is a huge counter to Vladimir. So, you know, we'll see what they can do coming in the next game. The big thing is they need some early advantages. They can't allow Udyr to get those early kills. They can't allow Rise to get those early kills that, you know, help to snowball them.
Yeah, Irelia, yeah, that early advantage that Vlad has basically completely disappeared because of the strong ganks from Udyr in the early game. And Irelia, you know, you don't want to snowball Irelia because she's just such a strong champion. And yes, and we saw that she was able to just dive in and just do tons of damage and be really safe. So yeah, good game. But that's it for game number 1, guys. We're going to cut to a quick commercial break, and we'll be right back.